channel. My name is Melissa and today's tutorial is going to be on a cardigan. I'm calling it the Alpine cardigan. But we are going to be doing this in one of two styles. So this will be a video for one and there will be a second video for the other. We can do it either widthways or you can work it long ways. You can have it short, you can have it really long like a jacket. But first, if you enjoy my content and want to support my channel, you can buy me a coffee at the link in the description below. Thank you so much for your support, it means the world to me. For this tutorial we will be working this cardigan widthways. So working from the bottom and around to the front. The yarn that I used for this cardigan, and I did a unbagging from Spotlight for this, and you will see the review I did on this one, and this is called Caron Skinny Cakes, and I used the bluey one which is called Pop Rock. Once again, I was using yarn that I had in my stash, so I not only I used some yarn that I've had for quite a while for the border, and this one is the acrylic range from Hobbii, and it don't think it has a name. I think it's just the light grey or mid grey. Yeah, it just says colour number 21. You will notice that these yarns are a lightweight yarn. It's a 4mm hook. I wear glasses. I find that difficult to work with, so I often blend my yarns together so I can use a thicker hook. And what I blended it with for the whole garment is this FOMO from Spotlight. Now, I believe they do not do this anymore. I've been buying them out when it's been on sale, so like for $1 a ball. So I've got oodles of it, and I've been saving it for something. So I used my dark blue one here and blended it with all the yarn to create that look that you can see in this cardigan. However, for this tutorial, we're going to be using slightly different yarns. For this project, we will be using a different colour of Caron Skinny Cakes, and we will be using this beautiful one here. So, yarn inspirations, Caron Skinny Cakes. I got this from Spotlight. The colour is called Melon Smoothie. It is a 250 gram ball of yarn. It is a 727 meters. Don't worry about the size of the hook because we will be doing something a little bit different. This is going to be the body of the cardigan. What I will be doing for the cuffs and the edge is this yarn. And you can see it's slightly similar to the brown. I'm picking out this brown colour here. You can do whatever you want. You can use completely this and don't have a changing colour. You can do something very similar to me. You can pick out any of the other colours. You can do something that is completely contrasting and nothing to do with this whatsoever and do that colour instead. It is completely up to you what you would like to do. But I'm going to be using this colour here, Lauren Basics. It is from Hobbii, which are based in Turkey. This is a 300 meter ball of yarn and is 100% acrylic. They don't come with names, these ones, so it is literally colour 882. You will need about 600 meters of this and about 1,500 meters of this. So just over 2 balls of this and 1.5 balls of this. To blend with this, because I'm not going to just leave it at that, I want a fluffy texture. So I am going to be blending both of these colours with this light grey. This is called Diablo. It is from Hobby. They are based in Denmark. It is 40% acrylic, 30% mohair and 30% polyamide, and it is so super soft. It's a beautiful yarn. So obviously you'll need about 2,000 meters of this because you're adding these two together to get that. Now this is for a size 14 to 16. I'm doing this. I'm wanting a longer cardigan that goes over the bum, so more like a jacket. And so therefore that's the amount I need for that. Now obviously if you are doing a larger cardigan, you might need slightly more yarn. If you are doing a smaller cardigan, you'll need less yarn. What I say is if you're going bigger, do 5 stitches more than what I give you for the larger size. So if you were doing a 16 to 18, go 5 higher. If you were doing 18 to 20, do another 5 on top of that, 20 to 22, another 5, so on and so forth. If you were doing smaller, then go 5 stitches less. So if you're doing a 12 to 14, go 5 less, a 10 to 12, go 5 less than that, and 8 to 10, go 5 less than that, so on and so forth. Now this is Australian sizes. Alrighty, now what else will I need? Let's just move you out of the way. For my base chain, I always do a hook size bigger. It just makes it nice and even. So I will be using my 6.5 millimeter hook. And then the body of the work will be a 5.5 millimeter hook. And I get my hooks from Furls, and they are based in America. I also will need my scissors, my tape measure, yarn needle, and stitch markers. Alright, let's get this project started. We are starting this project with the body, so using this yarn, and of course I said I was blending it with the mohair. So find the end of both. Now that you have found the ends, make a long tail because that is what you're going to be sewing up the sides with. So I just stretch it out to as far as my arm will reach. Then I am going to put in a slip knot. I grab my larger hook because if you remember what I said, I use my larger hook to do the chain. It makes it more even. So slip it on your hook. And then chain 70. Now remember I'm doing this as a 14 to 16. If you are wanting a size smaller, go 5 stitches smaller for each size smaller. So if you're doing your 12 to 14, you're going 5 stitches left, so 65 stitches. If you're doing 10 to 12, 5 stitches less than that, so you're doing it as 60, so on and so forth. If you're wanting it larger, go the opposite way. So if you want a 16 to 18, go 5 stitches bigger, and that will be 75. And then if you want 18 to 20, go 5 stitches bigger again, that would be 80, so on and so forth. Okay, so I am going to be doing 70 because I'm doing 14 to 16. I have my 70 stitches there on my chain. Now I need to change my hook over, and I'm going to go to my 5.5 millimeter hook. Now I'm going to chain an extra 1, and then I'm going to be working on the back of these chains. So you can see we've got a nice V here, and then on the back you'll see that there's a little lump. We're going to be working our stitches in that lump there. So what we're doing is half double crochet, and we will be missing that first chain there, then yarn over and go into the second chain into that lump there. So now you've got yarn over straight into that lump, grab a yarn, pull it through, And then grab your yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. Yarn over again, going into that next stitch, that lump there. Then grab a yarn and pull it through. And then grab a yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. Now you are working with 2 yarns, so always remember to catch both. So yarn over again, into that next loop. Grab your yarn, pull it through, and grab your yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. And keep doing that for every stitch down your chain. Just coming up to my last stitch. And then when you're at the end, chain 1, turn your work. Now do check that you still got your 70 stitches or whatever the stitch count it is that you're working with. Make sure you still got that. Okay, for your next row, we're just doing half double crochet. So yarn over, straight into the top of that stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through, and grab your yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. So yarn over, you'll see the top of the stitch there, grab your yarn, sorry, put your hook in, grab your yarn, pull it through, and then grab your yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. Yarn over, straight into that stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through, grab your yarn, pull through all the loops on the hook, and keep doing that till you get to the end of the row. I will meet you there. Coming to the end of row 2, and I've got a couple of stitches left, so go into that one, and your very, very last one, you always go into that one and always go into the edge there. So just make sure you pick up the 2 top bits there, grab your yarn, pull it through, and grab your yarn and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. Okay, so there are your first 2 rows. Now, if you're wondering why on earth I'm wasting my time blending with a mohair, and you don't have to, but my goodness, if there was feel-o-vision, you just have to do it just for the feel of this. It's so, it just adds a bit of, it's just so nice. Plus, also, I think it looks really nice. It's got that fluffy look about it. Okay, so next row, chain 1, turn your work, and you're repeating half double crochets again and again and again, and we are doing 80 rows of half double crochet. Now, if you want a shorter cardigan, do less rows. If you want a longer cardigan, do more rows. I've worked this out that this will actually go down over my bottom. Now, what I will suggest is just keep doing rows and measure it up to from your neck, or the person you're making for's neck, all the way down to as far as you want to go. When you've got the length you want, stop and meet me back here. Otherwise, if you're following along with me, do your 80 rows. For those who actually want to know the centimetres that I am doing, this is 59 centimetres wide. And to adjust it to the size that you want, either go 5 centimetres less or 5 centimetres more for every size, less or more from what I'm doing. And as a reminder, that is a 14 to 16. Now we have finished our 80 rows, we need to mark out where our 2 front panels are going to go. But before we do that, isn't this just gorgeous? Such gorgeous colours, and the feel of it, it's so nice. Oh, it's so lovely. Anyway, marking out where we need to put our front panels. We need to mark out for 2 strips that are going to go down the side there, and it will allow a neck which will be filled in later when we do the border. So what you need to do is grab a stitch marker. I'm going to count 25 stitches in and place a stitch marker on my 26th stitch. Then from that stitch marker, including that stitch marker, so that is number 1, count 20 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 19, 20, and place your stitch marker on that 20th stitch. And then the last remaining stitch amount should be 25. So count from after that stitch marker and go 25 stitches. Okay, so that should be 25 stitches, 20 stitches with the stitch markers on either end of your 20, and 25 stitches, making a total of 70. Now, if you've got another different stitch count, what I recommend is doing the middle bit, no matter what size it is, 19 centimeters. All right, so once you've done that, put your hook back in. And half double crochet up to, but not including that stitch marker. So just up to the stitch marker, that stitch there before the stitch marker. So that would be 25 stitches to the stitch before the stitch marker. So just half double crochet up to that. Last couple of stitches. So I've just gone into that stitch before that stitch marker. I chain one, I turn, and I continue on. Now that was row number 1 of the first front panel, and I've put a stitch marker in there to tell me that was row number 1. Now you just keep going backwards and forwards to that point there, those 25 stitches, until you have 80 rows. Those 80 rows are going to match the same number of 80 rows on your back. When you have done those 80 rows on that front panel, then shift over to the other front panel and do the same thing. Tip here, you need to start from the stitch before this stitch marker. Don't start at this end because that will make the pattern slightly skew on that row. You may not notice it at all, but to be, you know, as perfect as you can be, start from this end. Okay, so you're going to be doing 80 rows here. When you finish that, come over to this side, start from the inside near that stitch marker, that stitch in from that stitch marker, and do your other 80 rows for this panel here. When you have finished those 2 front panels, come back here and I will show you what to do next. I have now finished the first front side of the cardigan, and before I start the second front side, I wanted to give you this tip which I forgot to tell you about earlier. Now, if you remember, I said start on the stitch from the inside of the neck, so this is the neck here, start on this stitch here, not on the edge of your garment. Okay, so when you do start on the edge here, so you're missing, you don't go into that stitch there where the stitch marker is, you go into this stitch here. Start your yarn however you start your yarn. Okay, so I've got my yarn started. Now you can see it's in that stitch. The tip is you need to do your first stitch in that same stitch. So do not shift over to here. Go into this same stitch here. So yarn over and straight into that same stitch. Grab a yarn, pull it through. Grab a yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. And then continue as normal. You will find if you don't do that, you'll have 24 stitches instead of the 25 or whatever the amount of stitches you're supposed to have. You will have one less if you don't do it like this. So starting off your yarn and then putting your first stitch in there creates that first stitch of that row. Alright, so now that I've given you that tip, off you go and finish off your 80 rows on your second side. Both sides are now finished. That is side number 1 and there's side number 2. It's way too big to fit into the camera. Now the next thing you need to do is lie your side along the back. So you can see I've got the back there, and there's side number 1, and side number 2 is over the side here lined up. So lie them flat, make sure it's inside out. So what I do is I actually leave all my tails on one side, and then I make that the inside of my garment so that all the ends will be tied in on the inside. When I know that, then I make sure when I'm lying it all out that it is inside out, which it is. Now what we are doing is marking the armholes. So how I did that was, once I had it laid out, I measured from the top, which will be the shoulder. So this is the shoulder here, and there's the neck there, and the other shoulder is over here. So from the corner of the shoulder, I measured down 22 centimetres. Now I have found that that has been a brilliant size for 99% of sizes and women who have tried these on. If you have a particularly big-armed person that you are doing this for, do make the gap wider. Okay, so once you've found your 22 centimetres, put your stitch marker in and make sure you've got it through both sides. When you have done that, make sure you line it up identically on the other side. You want to make sure your armholes are the same. So what I did was, you can see that this row here that I have got the stitch marker in on the back, I followed the row all the way along and then put the stitch marker at the end of that row on the other side. Then for the front, I counted how many rows down I had to the stitch marker, which was 21, and I counted the exact same amount of rows on the other side down, so it was 21. I remeasured the 22 stitches to make sure it was the same length. So I double checked and they were both the same. Once you are happy with how your armholes are positioned, then sew up the sides. Now the other tip I wanted to give you on this was, when you are sewing, sew with it flat. So what I found, so you can see that there's so much of it. You can see that I just stitch marked the end up there. So what I do is just take that out, put this on my needle, and I sew flat. Now, what I found was that when I was sewing with it together like so, and you go over, you have this seam, this big ridge, and it's sticking out. And I didn't like that, and it was a bit rubby, and yeah, I just don't like the look of it either. So what I found is, if I sew flat like so, and I sew just catching the top as I go along, it leaves it nice and flat and actually gave it a really nice look. So that's me personally, that's what I like to do, but you can sew up however you like. So simply sew up the side however you want to sew up the side, and do that on both sides, sewing it up to the stitch marker, so don't go beyond there. On one side, sew it up, end off your end, and snip it off, and you know, nice and neat and all the rest of it. On the other side, when you get to your stitch marker, so one side end it all off, and on the other side end it off, but leave your tail hanging. Don't snip it off. The reason why is, when you come to doing your arm, you want to make sure that your armholes are both same size, and if the second arm isn't big, is either too big or not big enough, you can still have your tail to undo it or make more sewing to get that the same size. But we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to doing the armhole. For now, sew up your sides, and I will meet you back here when it is time to do your arms. We now have the side sewn up and the hole there to do our arm. So let's get to it and do our arms. Alright, time to do the sleeve. Now I've already done one of the sleeves, and it's a bit hard to fit in because it's quite long, and you can see the cuff is done in that decorative stitch there. This is called Alpine stitch, and it's called that because apparently these lines look like trees and you're walking through an alpine forest. I love using a contrasting colour. It's not really contrasting because I'm picking out one of the colours in the body colour and just emphasising it on the sleeves and the edge of the cardigan. You can do it in the same colour as just continuing with the body colour and just continue down. You can use a completely different colour. You can pick out another colour here, a contrasting colour, whatever you want, you can do that. And oh, it's beautiful. I love using the mohair with this as well. It's just so super soft and squishy. Now, when you do your first sleeve, whatever the number of stitches you had here is exactly the same number of stitches you need to have on your second sleeve. So you might need to do some wangle jangling to get it so that you have exactly the same stitches. It doesn't matter how many stitches you create for your first sleeve. Doesn't matter at all. You just need to make a note of it somewhere and make sure you repeat exactly the same on your second sleeve. So for me, it was 45 stitches that I started out with. So, and I'm going to obviously repeat that on the second sleeve. You'll also notice that when I do my sleeve, I have a whole heap of stitch markers. That will make absolute sense when we get to the reason why for that. But you'll notice that this is marking out 5 rows, so 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So we do 30 rows of the body and then another 10 rows for the alpine stitch to make a total of 40 rows. Now I find that this works out really, really well for a majority of sizes to have this same amount of stitches for your arm, because the body will be the body for your person and then the arm generally will be exactly the same length that you require. Alright, so now I'm on to my second sleeve. The principles are exactly the same. You're just repeating what you do for your first sleeve. So what I'm going to do is go straight into the seam there. Just go straight into the middle there, because that is where the seam for the sleeve is going to end up, and I want it to marry up down the body. I don't obviously want it sticking out the back or sticking out the front. So obviously you'll start at the seam and the bottom of where your sleeve is going to go. So start your yarn off however you start your yarn off. And then half double crochet stitches all around the edge of your sleeve opening. How I do this is you'll see that there's that row, and then there's the next row, and then the next row, and the next row, and the next row, so on and so forth. So you will be putting a stitch at the top of each row. Now, when you look closely, you'll see that there's a hole there, a hole there, a hole there, there, so on and so forth. So what I do is I miss the next hole and I go into that next hole there. Then I
miss that next hole and go into the next hole there. Then I miss the next hole and go into the next hole there, and so on and so forth, all the way around until I have all the stitches I need all the way around. Now, it doesn't matter how you do this. It's just I find that doing it this way creates a very even stitching all the way around. And that's what you want. You want it nice and even. So continue making your stitches, and I will meet you when you have finished that. Okay, when you get to the last stitch of this round that you're creating, see that stitch there where you started, so where you connected your yarn, right there. Place your last stitch of this round in that stitch there. So go straight in there. So you are doing your half double crochet, so you just do that one straight into that same stitch that you created, where you attached your yarn. Okay, so now you've done that, count how many stitches you had. So as I said, I had 45, and that's how many stitches that I created comfortably. It is always different for every single jumper I do. Don't ask me how it does that. It just does. So make a note of that somewhere and put that somewhere safe so you don't forget what you're doing for your second sleeve. Now, when you do come to your second sleeve, which is this is for, in my case, so I had to do 45 stitches here. This took me several attempts. I wasn't going to bore you and show you every single attempt, because when you sew up your seam here, you often don't get it identical on either side. So I actually did it too short. I had to come up a little bit. So that's why I recommend you leave that tail that you sewed up with. Don't cut it off. Leave it there. And then you have it there to sew it up if you need to. So I sewed it up a little bit, and then it created nice space so I could have the 45 stitches that I required, because I did 47, 49 or something. So now I'm down to the 45 stitches that I needed. All right, so now that we're there, we need to connect this round together. So what you need to do is get your hook and slip it into the top of that first stitch of the round. So right in the tippy top there. So there's that first stitch, and you're going into that tippy top up there, straight in, and we're doing a slip stitch. So grab the yarn and pull through that stitch and the loop on your hook. Chain one and then turn your work. So now, oh, there's a lot of it. So now you're looking on the inside of the sleeve. Just tuck your tails back in there. You'll sew them up later. Okay, so now we're on the next round, and miss that first stitch there. Don't go into that hole there. Go into the next one here. So your half double crochets, yarn over, straight into that stitch, and keep creating your stitches on top of the previous stitch all the way around until you get back to the beginning here, and I will meet you there when you get there. Oh, and a tip for you, count. Count, count, count. Every row, count. It is so easy on sleeves to just lose a stitch somewhere. So I highly recommend count. I'm at the end of the round, so this is round 2, and I'm at the end of that, and remember, there is that first stitch that I did of this round, right there, and I'm putting my last stitch of this round into that same stitch there. The reason why I do this is I just find that this makes a much nicer seam. It's just me personally, and once you get in the habit of doing it that way, I just find it's a lot easier. Okay, now we have to join the round together. So a slip stitch, so straight, there's that first stitch again. There's the top of the stitch, straight in there. Grab a yarn and pull through that stitch and the loop on your hook. And then chain one, turn your work. Now I forgot to mention, on your very first row, which is really easy for me because it's a completely different colour, I highly recommend that on the first row you place a stitch marker. So that tells you where it's row number 1. It's pretty obvious for me here, however, when it is the same colour, it helps you a lot. So that's telling me that's row number 1. We've just finished row number 2 and we're about to do row number 3. Row number 3 is the same. So you've turned your work, you've done your chain 1, you turned your work, and the cardigan should be facing you at the front now. And remember, you're missing that stitch there, going into the next one. And continue your half double crochets. Don't forget to keep counting. Okay, last stitch on round 3. Remember, we're going into the same, ending this row in the same stitch that we started this row in. And then slip stitch together the round. Chain 1, turn your work. So we're now on to round 4. And remembering, missing that stitch there, going into that next one. And complete this round. Remember to count. And once again, at the end of that round, putting your last stitch in the same stitch as your first stitch. Then slip stitch the round together, chain 1, turn your work. And now we are on round 5. Round 5 of each of these sections will always be a decrease round. So we're going to do 6 rounds of 5 lots. That should make a total of 30 rows that you're doing for your sleeve before you get to the cuff. So for a decrease round, what you need to do, once again, you're missing that first stitch there, then yarn over, go straight into the next stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through. Then go straight into the following stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, and then grab a yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. I'll run that through again. So you will be missing that first stitch there, yarn over, go into the next one, grab a yarn, pull it through, go into the next stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, and then grab a yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. So there's your decrease. And then continue with your half double crochets all the way around. Now for me, I had 45 stitches, so now I should only have 44. When I get 10 stitches in, I just use 10 because it's a round number. What I do is I grab a stitch marker and I put the stitch marker in that row. And then that tells me that's my 5th row, and that was one lot of 5 that I've done. Alright, continue with this round and I'll meet you back at the end of the round. I am coming to the end of the round and I'm on my 44th stitch, which is exactly right. And I am going to slip that round together, chain 1, turn my work. And now I'm going to do 4 rows of half double crochet without a decrease. So I'm on to my next set of 5 rows. So what we're doing now is we're going to continue 4 rows of half double crochet without a decrease. So continue on as normal, missing that first stitch, going on to the next stitch, half double crocheting all the way around, slip stitch the row together, chain 1, turn your work, and continue on. And I will meet you here when you're up to your 5th row of this section, and just run through that decrease again. Okay, so finishing up my 4th row of this section. So you see we've got section 1 that we did together. Now section 2, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So I'm going to join that together to finish that round there. Chain 1, turn my work. And now, because I'm on my 5th round of this section, this is a decrease row. Okay, so remember, we're missing that stitch there, that bit there. We're going into the next one, so yarn over, straight into that stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through, go into the next stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, grab a yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. Let me run it through one more time. So missing that stitch there, going into this stitch. So yarn over, straight into that stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through. Go into the next stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, and then grab a yarn and pull through all the loops on the hook. So you've joined those 2 stitches together now. And now you should have 1 stitch left. So for me, I should be up to 43. So do your round, remember counting to make sure you have the right amount of stitches. My last stitch, and I do have the 43 stitches that I should have. And then join your round together, chain 1, turn your work, grab a stitch marker and place it into that row. So you know where your 5th row was. So 1, 2, 3, 4, that's my 5th row. So that's my second lot of 5. And then continue with your rows of half double crochet. So now this is row 1 again on the next section of 5 rounds. And I will do 4 without decrease, then the 5th one is a decrease. Then 4 without decrease, and the 5th one is a decrease. And always mark your decrease round with a stitch marker so you know where you're up to. So you will be doing a total of 6 rounds of these 5. So decreasing every time on your 5th round. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And decreasing on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decrease. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a decrease. So on and so forth till you have 30 stitches in total. Me, I started out with 45 stitches and I should end up with, when I finished this part of the sleeve, 39 stitches. Alright, I am going to leave you to continue with this, doing your decreasing for a total of 6 times of decreasing, sets of 5, 6 of those, and you should have 30 rows left. And I will meet you back here when you have done that and show you how we do the cuff. Okay, so I'm nearly finished the last row of my body of my sleeve. So you can see 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. But before you finish off this round, like you normally would, as in do your last stitch and then, so I can do the last stitch. And then what you would normally do is do your slip stitch. Now we're going to change our yarn first. So grab your scissors and you only need to cut off your body yarn. And what we're going to do is attach our cuff colour yarn, which for me is the brown. So I'm going to bring the brown in now. And then what we need to do is put the body colour down, bring the cuff colour in and hold that together with your mohair, and then you're going in to the top of the area where you would normally slip stitch, so into the top of the first stitch of the round. Get those two new colours, so your new colour with your mohair, wrap that over your yarn and bring that through the loops on your hook. Chain 1, well in this case actually chain 2, turn your work. And now we are going to start the cuff. Make sure when you've done a row, put these in the back so you will sew them in the back of your sleeve. Okay, but for now they can just sit there. Now we're going to be doing the alpine stitch for the cuff. So the first row will be double crochets. So we're going to miss that first stitch again, going into the next stitch. You're going to go yarn over, straight into that stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through. Then grab a yarn and pull through the first 2 loops on the hook. Grab a yarn and go through the last 2 loops on the hook, and there is your double crochet. So again, yarn over, go into the next stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, grab a yarn, pull through the first 2 loops on the hook, grab a yarn and pull through the next 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over, into the next stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through the first 2, through the next 2. So 1, 2, 1, 2. So you are double crocheting this whole round. So keep going all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end. And at the end of the round, same as what we've always been doing, you're putting the last stitch into the same as the first stitch as you did at the start of the round. So just keep going with your double crochets, and then in the top of that first stitch there, we're going to join the stitch, sew the round together. Chain 1, turn your work. Okay, so when you're on the inside of the sleeve, when the inside is facing you, this row is always going to be a single crochet round. So every time you have the sleeve looking like this facing you, single crochet. So missing that first stitch again and going into the next stitch, straight into that stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, grab a yarn and pull through the 2 loops on the hook. Next stitch, go straight into that stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, grab a yarn, pull through 2 loops on the hook. Into the next stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, grab a yarn and pull through the 2 loops on the hook. That is your single crochets, and you are going to be doing that all the way around. At the end of this round, the same as we've always been doing, your last stitch is going to go into the same as the first stitch, do your single crochet, and once you slip stitch the round together, chain 2, turn your work. Now the front is always going to be, from now onwards, a combination of front post triple crochet followed by a double crochet, front post triple, double crochet, front post, so on and so forth. So to start off this round, missing that first stitch again, going into the second stitch, we're looking at this post here. So this stitch here is called a post, and what we're doing is a front post triple crochet. So missing that stitch, go to that one, follow it down, you'll find the post there, and we're going to work into that. What you need to do is wrap the yarn around your hook twice, then going in to this side of the post, go behind and come out the other side of the post. Then yarn over and bring that yarn behind like so, and then yarn over and through the first 2 loops on the hook, yarn over through the next 2 loops on the hook, and yarn over in the last 2 loops on the hook. Then you go to the next stitch here, yarn over, and we're doing a double crochet. Straight into that stitch, grab a yarn, pull it through, grab a yarn, pull through the first 2 loops on the hook, grab the yarn and through the last 2 loops on the hook. Next stitch, which is here, there's the post. We're doing a front post treble crochet. So 1, 2 wraps around your hook, and then going straight into this side of the post, behind, out the other side. Grab your yarn and pull it right behind, and then grab a yarn and first go through the first 2 loops on the hook, grab a yarn, go through the next 2 loops on the hook, and grab a yarn and go through the last 2 loops on the hook. So that's your front post treble. Now we're doing a double crochet in the next stitch. 1, 2, and then a treble in the next post. 1, 2 wraps around. There's our next post. Because you can see you've gone into that stitch there, so go into the next stitch. There's the post. Go behind, grab a yarn, and then 1, 2, 3. Then you're doing your double, and then your treble behind, 1, 2, 3. And you can see you've got sort of like what looks like a lumpy effect. And you're just repeating that. So treble, double, treble, double, treble, double, treble. And keep going. So you can see that when you do a front post treble, it brings the stitch up and out, and that's what gives you that lumpy tree look. So keep going with that. So the next stitch, the next stitch is going to be your double. 1, 2, then following on from that, here's my post, and we're doing our treble front post. 1, 2, 3. Double, wrap twice, treble front post. 1, 2, 3. So keep going with that, and I'll meet you when you're at the end of the row. Coming to the end of the round, and my last stitch here is going to be a front post treble. Now just a little tip, just constantly look around and make sure you've got it all even. It's quite easy to misalign your stitches, so just constantly look around, make sure it's even. And the other thing is, if you've started off with an odd number of stitches, your first stitch and your last stitch will be the same. If you started out with an even number of stitches, your last stitch and your first stitch are going to be different. So if this is a front post, this will become a double crochet. I hope that makes sense. So because I started with an odd number of stitches and I'm working an odd number of stitches, my stitch here, which was a front post treble, is going to be exactly the same as front post treble over here. Alright, so now I just need to join my row together like normal with a slip stitch, chain 1, turn my work, and because I'm on the inside of my sleeve, it is always going to be single crochets, so missing that first stitch there and doing my single crochets all the way around. At the end of the round, last stitch, slip stitch the round together, chain 2, turn my work. Now this one is going to be opposite to the row you did before. So this one here, because this is a triple front post treble crochet, on top of that I want to place a double crochet. Okay, if you have a double crochet before, you're going to put your treble, front post treble, into that. So when it sticks out like that, you're putting a double crochet on top, and when it goes in like this, you're doing a front post treble crochet on that. So from now onwards, it's quite easy to tell what's what because you can see where you're at. So we're going to start this round with a double crochet. And then the next one is going to be a front post. And then the next one, it's sticking out, so it's a double crochet. And the next one's going in, so that's my front post treble. Okay, so keep doing that for this round, and I will meet you at the end of the round. Okay, at the end of this round, my last stitch is going to be on top of the treble crochet, the front post treble. So looking straight down, I know it's going to be a double crochet. Also for me, because I started with a double crochet, I know I'm going to end with a double crochet. If you had an even number of stitches in your sleeve, it would be opposite. So just keep that in mind when you're doing this. Okay, finishing off like we normally do with a slip stitch to join the round together. Chain 1, turn your work, and you guessed it, you have to do single crochets on the inside of your sleeve. So missing that stitch and doing single crochets all the way around. End of that row, finishing off like we normally do. Slip stitch the top together, chain 2, turn your work, and this row, because it's now the opposite of what we did on the last row, you can see that we have our double crochet here, so I'm going to do my front post treble, and then double, front post treble, double, and so on and so forth. So starting off with my front post treble, then followed by my double, front post treble, and so on and so forth. So you should be able to get the idea of this. Oops. Let me do that one again. So you should be able to get the idea of this now. So you're doing opposite each time. Now, what you will be doing now is continuing that round. Then the next round is your single crochet. Then the next round will be opposite to what you did on this round. So you would start with a double crochet and so on and so forth. Do 5 rounds of this pattern. So we're on 3 now. So this is 1, 2, 3. We're on the 3rd round now. I'm going to leave you to do another 2 rounds after this one, and your sleeve cuff will look like this. And you can see here it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And once you've done the 5 cuffs, the 5 rows of the alpine, then you finished your cuff. Do that and then come back here and I'll show you what we need to do next. Done the 5 rows, you can the 5 alpines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now all we need to do is slip stitch your round together, snip off the end, pull that through, and sew in your ends. So that's one sleeve done, and now you just need to repeat for the other sleeve. So you have 2 sleeves, and then when you have finished that, come back here and it is time to do the band to go around the front of your cardigan. Okay, now it is time to work the front of our cardigan. We are going to do a band all the way around the front. So this is the neck, and you're working the band all the way around. So it's very long, hard to show you the whole thing in the camera, but what you need to do is it's very, very similar that we're doing the same alpine stitch in the same color and everything as you did for your cuffs. We're doing on the band. You'll be working it pretty much exactly the same as you did for the cuffs. Couple of tips for you though. When you're starting your first row, make sure your cardigan is facing out to you so it is the correct way around. Go to the corner of the front, so as it's facing to you, go to the corner, put in your hook right at the corner there. Get your working yarn, start your yarn the way you start your yarn, and the first stitch is going to go into that same stitch you put the yarn in. So it is a double crochet you will be doing for this first round. So yarn over, straight back into that same stitch you started your round with, and then do your double crochet. Now, you're doing the stitches at the end of each one of your rows. So like we did before when we were starting the sleeve, I miss the next hole and then I go into the next one. Double crochet. Miss the next hole, go into the next one, double crochet. Miss the next hole, go into the next one, double crochet. So keep doing that as you go around, making sure that your stitches are even as you go around. It does not matter how many stitches you put in. So just make sure that it is all even. It looks neat and tidy, because you don't want it looking all wonky when you've finished. So there we go. When you have a look at it, you can see they're neat and tidy across. Keep going and working your way around, and I will meet you at the end of your first row here. Now we have finished our foundation row of double crochets. When you come to the end of the row, make sure your last stitch is right at the edge there. Chain 1, turn your work, and you guessed it, this row will be, and every row on the inside of your cardigan is going to be your single crochets. So just make sure you single crochet into every single stitch all the way along. And then when you have done that, I will show you what to do next. Coming to that end of the row, just make sure you get that last single crochet in that last stitch right there on the corner. There we go. Chain 2 and turn your work. So now we're starting the alpine stitch, which you are familiar with by now. So how we do it when we're going straight up and down instead of in the round, you are still not doing it into that stitch right there on the corner, but go into the next one. And we are going to start off with the front post treble. So wrap your hook twice, as you know, and go behind that post there and do your 1, 2, 3 treble, and then the next one is going to be your double crochet, then treble front post, and then your double, treble front post, and so on and so forth. So keep doing that until you get to the end of the round. Coming to the end of that row, and depending on how your stitches worked out, what the numbers are on that, my last stitch is going to be, your last stitch is always going to be on that post there, okay, as in for the pattern. So for me, I've just done a double crochet, so this is going to be a front post treble. Now, if you had done this as a front post treble, this stitch here, that will always be your double crochet. Okay, so I'm going to do my front post treble on this stitch here. And then my very, very last stitch down the edge here, right in there, here, right there, that is going to be your double crochet, and that will always, right on this edge, always, always, always be a double crochet. Get it right in there. So if you're finishing here, so for the next round for me, when I'm doing this row here, it will be that will be a front post there and a double crochet there, and then another double crochet right on the edge here. So you'll do, so one row will be front post, double crochet, front post, double crochet, and then the next row on top of that is going to be double crochet, front post, double crochet, double crochet. Hope that makes sense. What we'll do is, you'll know that the next round is going to be your single crochets. I will meet you at the end of that just to show you how to start the next round for this row. And it'll make sense when we get there. But anyway, you finished that row there of your alpine stitch, chain 1, turn your work, and you are doing your single crochets all the way around. Now do make sure when you're doing these single crochet rounds, you're going straight into that first stitch. And I will meet you at the end of this row. At the end of our row here, our single crochet, so putting the stitch in there, and then make sure you put the stitch right in the corner here. Okay, chain 2, turn your work. Alright, so missing that first stitch there, and we're going above our post here. So because that is a front post triple crochet, we know that we have to put on top of that the double crochet. So yarn over, straight into the stitch, grab your yarn, pull it through, and 1, 2. And so the next stitch is going to be your front post treble, 1, 2, 3. Then your double, front post treble, so on and so forth. Okay, so complete this row, and I'll meet you at the end of the row just to go over how we're finishing off for that row, and then I'll tell you what we do next. Okie dokie, coming to the end of this row, and we can see that my second last stitch was a front post double, so I have to do my double crochet on top of that, and the last stitch is always a double crochet. Make sure we get right in there. There we go. Okay, so and you can see we've done the pattern right because we've got it going in and out. Okay, so just as a refresher, when you come to the end of these rows, when you're doing the row at the front, your alpine stitch rows, making sure that the edge here, you are, if you're doing a second last stitch is your front post double, then your last stitch is your double crochet, and then on top of that you'll do a double crochet, so on and so forth all the way up. When you're starting the alpine row, let's go the other side. Oh, there's a lot of it. So when you're starting, make sure when you're finishing your single crochet row on the back that you're doing 1 there and 1 in the very corner. This will give you that stitch in the corner there that you're doing your chain off. So remember, you do the 1 in the corner and then chain 2, and that creates that first stitch there, and then the next stitch that I'll be working on when I get here is going to be my front post double. Now the tip is, look below. If you see a front post double there, you're going to do a double crochet on top. Front post, double crochet, front post, so on and so forth. So always look below in what you're doing. And obviously always the back, where there's no pattern, you're doing your single crochet. I do about 8 rows of alpine. So once you've counted 8 rows of alpine, that's when I finish. But you can do less or you can do way more. It's personally up to you. What I like is that I'm able to put the cardigan on and wrap it around me and have it overlapping. So that's what I do, and I find that the 8 rows of alpine works really, really well for that. So I'm going to leave you to do the amount of rows that you want. As I said, 8 for me. and I will come back here and show you the finished product. We are all finished. Band is all done. Now it is way too big to fit into the camera, so take a look at this. I am really chuffed with how well this has come out. I love the colour combination. I love the feel and the texture of this. And I hope you have loved making yours too. If you have enjoyed this and you would like to support me, please feel free to check out Buy Me a Coffee, and the link is down below. Otherwise, please like, subscribe and do all that good stuff. You can also drop me a super thanks if you so wish. I have way more tutorials. Please check them out, and hopefully I will see you at one of my tutorials again sometime soon. Thanks for coming along, everybody. Bye, everyone.